So this is an absolutely crazy breaking story here, and it's that Elon Musk, the world's richest man, worth over $200 billion in net worth, has actually purchased the social media platform called Twitter, which is arguably the most influential, I'd say, in the United States platform, social media platform in its entirety. So there's been this just recent saga where he had been kind of toying with the idea of like buying it or becoming a shareholder, and it was revealed that he was like the biggest shareholder recently, but now he's gotten to a deal with Twitter to just buy it in its entirety. So I guess he just owns it in its entirety. It says Twitter agreed to be taken over at $54.20 a share, 38% premium over the share price before it was revealed that Mr. Musk had been buying up the company's stock. And so it looks like it's worth about $44 billion. So as you can see from that great mug from Elon, it's worth about $44 billion. Now, this is absolutely terrible because what you have going on here is the richest man on the planet actually purchasing a major, arguably the most major in the United States, social media platform, because he's going to get to dictate what people can and can't post. That's how narratives are formed, etc., etc. And so if you have the richest person actually controlling what the narratives are and what people are saying, it means he's going to continue to garner more and more power. And this is unfortunately what you'll see happen in a lot of capitalist societies. And this is why capitalism needs to be kept in check, and you need pluralism, right? Forget even like economical systems, but just liberalism as an ideology. This is like political science, Western political science 101. Pluralism is a necessity for liberalism, right? You can't have pluralism if the rich are just controlling everything. So just like Jeff Bezos purchasing the Washington Post, for example, somebody who is so wealthy, I mean, he's, the second richest now, right? Someone like that owning a media platform that gets to cover the news, that is going to cover news on him and his companies, is a huge conflict of interest, because the ownership is now people who will push against them, criticizing them, right? And so that's the same thing for Elon. And Elon is notoriously like petty and personal, and he definitely has a lot of psychological issues for sure. Definitely compensating for maybe like some very social shortcomings in his life. I don't know if he lacked like any sort of social anything. Maybe he just, that's what it seems like to me for sure. And so he's compensating how like fixated he is and how personal he gets with stuff, and how he's very notorious for this, by the way, where it's like if you get him, he will just die basically trying to fight you essentially on a personal level. It's very, very worrisome, because it indicates that it's not going to be like a hands-off approach. It's going to be more of like, oh, this guy doesn't like me, I'm gonna go fuck this guy. It says Elon Musk struck a deal on Monday to buy Twitter for roughly $44 billion in a victory by the world's richest man to take over the influential social media network frequented by world leaders, celebrities, and cultural trendsetters. Twitter agreed to sell itself to Mr. Musk for $54.20 a share, 38% premium over the company's share price this month. Free speech is the bedrock of a functioning democracy, and Twitter is the digital town square where matters vital to the future of humanity are debating, Mr. Musk said in a statement announcing the deal. Twitter has tremendous potential. I look forward to working with the company and the community of users to unlock it. The deal, which has been unanimously approved by Twitter's board, is expected to close this year, subject to a vote of Twitter shareholders and certain regulatory approvals. The blockbuster agreement caps what has seemed an improbable attempt by the famously mercurial Mr. Musk to 50 to buy the social media company, and immediately raises questions about what he will do with the platform and how his actions will affect speech globally. And so he's trying to say that it's all about free speech. We all know that that's obviously bullshit. He sent out a tweet saying, I hope that even my worst critics remain on Twitter, because that is what free speech means. He's lying out of his asshole. He doesn't give a fuck about free speech. He wants to utilize Twitter, first of all, to get all the brownie points that come with it, like the psychological dopamine rush, and this is a lot for Elon too. He really, like I said, he's so desperate for clout and other people's approval of him in a very childish way, though, like the way where he's like constantly so thirsting after likes for his memes and stuff like that. It's some very bizarre psychological thing where he's definitely like he's overcompensating for, I think, just a lack of that in the rest of his life, I guess. It has nothing to do with free speech. It has to do with the cool factor of coming with, I own Twitter. I own the social media platform that people speak on. I own it. I'm the cool guy that owns it. Bow down to me. I am your god, essentially. And Elon Musk to me strikes me as definitely like a god. Like he definitely sees himself as a deity, essentially. I think that's what he looks at himself as, and so he's going to use his plutocratic power, his power from his money. In order to try to corner as much of society as possible, right? And you see even in just the economical world, obviously businesses trying to garner as much economical power as they can, industrial power, etc. But he's going after all parts of society. So even like in the article, essentially explains that if you go down here, it essentially explains that regulators are unlikely to block Musk's purchase of Twitter, former officials say, because basically it's like the FTC. It says the FTC has sued Facebook on grounds that companies' purchase of Instagram and WhatsApp stamped out possible future competitors. It's essentially Federal Trade Commission mostly looks at more at horizontal integration when it comes to monopolization. Horizontal integration is when a business purchases a competitor. So, for example, let's say Apple purchases Sprint. That would be an example of horizontal integration, and so that's more what they look at. But since it's like he owns Tesla and his other shit, it's not like directly. He's not buying up. Twitter's not a competitor to those companies, and so it's not really something that they believe is in their purview. Obviously, this does impact him because he gets to control what people do, say, and don't say about his companies, right? So it is something that's going to impact his companies. It is something that's going to impact competition, because what is he going to do about the speech of people who are advocating for different products that are in competition with him? And so this is how you really corner all different sectors of life. This really doesn't even have much to do with Elon as a person. These are all kind of just an addendum issues that are obvious, but people who are the richest in society should not be allowed to also control what is said in the media or controlling social media platforms, because that power that they're going to get is also going to be barriers to entry to other companies and people being able to challenge them and compete with them in the economical world. And obviously it's quashing free speech, right? Like our civil liberties, right? So those are the big issues here. Whatever billionaire it is, it really doesn't matter. It could be Elon Musk, it could be Elon Schmusk, like it really doesn't matter. Jeff Bezos, whoever it is, any billionaire buying up media or social media, it is horrible for society, because that's how you lose competition. That's how you get your rights and more specifically civil liberties, not rights, quashed. That's how you get that, is because, and I've seen a lot of people who are defending it saying like, oh, well, the lobbyists are already corrupting government or whatever, so it's good for Elon Musk to buy it. So I don't really understand that. I mean, so it's better that Elon's not like competing with other lobbyists. Instead, he just buys it up in its entirety instead. That's kind of weird. It's like, let's bypass the lobbyists and instead let's just make corruption just full on direct, instead of the Koch brothers paying politicians to vote in favor of them. Let's just buy Congress in its entirety and let's instead pass our own legislation to support us. That's not any better. That's actually worse. That's not better. Like in any way, shape, or form, that's not better. And again, pluralism is the bedrock of modern liberal society, Western society, pluralism being the idea of different groups of people with separated powers all fighting each other for power. And in somewhere like Russia, for example, pluralism has never really existed. And so, liberal theory essentially says that, nobles are fighting the king and blah, blah, blah. And that leads to, all the rights and civil liberties as they have to compromise. But what happens when the richest man uses his power with all of his money to get into the media and the social media scene, which clearly impacts not only his economics and his business, but it also impacts, obviously, civil liberties, because, who controls Twitter now? And so what the fuck he even means by this isn't even really clear to me. He says, if our Twitter bid succeeds, we will defeat the spam bots or die trying and authenticate all real humans. Like, that's just super creepy anyways. But it's like, what does this even mean? I mean, is spam not free speech? And, who gets to determine who is a spam bot and who isn't a spam bot? And I know he's already done, I think he canceled back in the day in 2016, he canceled a Tesla car order for a dude in the media who was critical of his showing. he showed up late, and then he criticized him for not apologizing, and then he said fuck you, and he literally canceled his Tesla pre-order. So it's like, this guy is a personal little petty bitch. So imagine what this guy is going to do on Twitter. And so this is just not a good thing. And unfortunately, what we're seeing in society right now in the United States, I would say the latter thing that I'm going to mention is worse than the former. But what you're seeing is there's just so much corporate consolidation to the point where it's become normalized and nobody even understands or challenges it in any way. It's just like, it's almost like it's just become a fact of life now. I mean, just even reading the CNN Plus, news article that I talked about, like Warner Bros. And Discovery have merged now. So all these huge companies are merging together. That leads to barriers to entry for other companies and firms to compete with them. That ends up leading to oligopolies and monopolies. And that's not a free market system, because you have barriers to entry for other firms to enter your industry. So it's become just nobody even bats an eye. And so there's a lot of people who genuinely think like, Elon Musk getting it, cool. And it really has nothing to do with Elon Musk himself. Like I said, it could be Elon Schmusk. It doesn't matter who it is. If it's a billionaire, someone with a lot of money, it's dangerous for them to also hold power in the media, because then they're going to use their power and money to also control the media, which is ergo going to also impact how they make money. So he's going to quash people who are critical of Tesla. He's going to quash other people who are advocating for other products. He's going to quash people who he just doesn't like. Like I said, this guy's a petty bitch, dude. Like, he has some serious demons inside of him, like some really bad, like, social reject vibes. I mean, this guy's like, his Twitter account is like a 12-year-old child's account. Like, look at this shit in case you need to lose a boner fast. And it's like a picture of like Bill Gates. He's like, I don't even know how old Bill Gates is. He's got like obviously a belly. And it's just like, dude, tell me this is not like, this is some kind of just like mental, just I don't even know what to call this. This is the Twitter account of a 12-year-old boy. Seriously. It's like, and this is the guy with the richest man. He's also this guy. He's compensating for a lot of social issues in his life. And this is not going to end well. Elon is not really in the place to also be making fun of people's looks either. I mean, it's just, oof, this is just really bad. And so, like, one good thing going on right now, due to the labor shortage, it's caused worker power to shift back into the workers' direction. And so you have that going on. The demand is causing the equilibrium point to shift. And so that's impacting wages and union power. Wages are rising as a result of the equilibrium point shifting because of the demand curve, and the supply curve shifting. And so what you end up having now is unions are gaining more power, seeing unionizing. That's why unionizing is so fucking important too, because you can fight against shit like this. You can't, even with that, you can't really fight like number one. One of the things, for example, is like in Germany, for example, and this is a common norm in like Europe, but in Germany, they have like co-determination laws where, depending upon how many employees your business actually has, a certain percentage of the board actually has to be voted on by the workers. And so that's how you can do that, where it's like you still have like capitalism, but also there's good regulation for it. And that's what you need. But when you start losing regulations and, the richest man on the planet is buying probably the most influential social media platform in the United States, you're losing regulation, you're losing pluralism, you're losing competition, you're losing civil liberties. This is how capitalism fails. This is essentially how capitalism fails, because the person who gets so fucking wealthy consolidates so much money, they can use that money to then consolidate even more power in other walks of life, and eventually you essentially just have, a few people controlling everything, right? That's essentially what you end up having. That's why it's so important to have like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and whoever criticizing them, because otherwise it's like, damn, these fuckers could just roam free and just do whatever the fuck they want, because there's no one to check them. And so it's very scary to see this going down, and hopefully this is something that shifts, but I don't even know if people even understand, how oligopolies and monopolies form and why it's even bad. People don't even seem to understand that. It's like, oh, like that prevents other companies from being able to enter the industry and compete. It's like they don't even understand that. Like Apple continuing to vertically integrate, or purchasing Beats, for example. They literally bought Beats, right? That's like some kind of diagonal integration, because it's like they make headphones, but that's also an accessory for their main product, which is phones and computers and all of that stuff. So I don't even know if there's like a diagonal integration in economics, but they got to make a new they got to make a new term for how hardcore consolidation is happening corporate wise. So hopefully we can start to shift that and be like, this is not a free market economy. It's not even close. It's not. And so what you're going to end up getting is, two, three, four people have essentially like, all of power in society, most of money in society. And we do know that past a certain point, wealth inequality is bad. You can calculate wealth inequality in a society using the Gini coefficient. You can, reference that through the Gini index. So we know even from that's like a capitalist indicator. It's not like a socialist indicator. That's like American, economics even says that the level of wealth inequality in the United States is actually bad. Like it's negative. Wealth inequality in and of itself, is not necessarily bad to a certain extent. But when it becomes too much, it actually becomes seriously bad for society. People at the bottom are denied education as a result, and then turn to, a lot of property crimes. But not good. Very horrible stuff going on here. Very scary stuff. And it's not looking good for the way that America is going, because corporate consolidation just seems to be just like willy-nilly. It's just a fact of life all of a sudden, when it should not be a fact of life. This is not a free market economy. That's how you result in oligopolies and monopolies, preventing, other businesses from being able to jump in. And I mean, wow, this is just crazy. So what's going to happen to Twitter? He says that he's going to add in some edit stuff. I really don't give a fuck about that, because that's just all a bunch of other, stuff that's not really important. The important stuff is that the richest man in the world just bought the most influential social media platform and now gets to control it. And on top of that, he's a petty bitch.